What is the Warrior Week podcast?
And what you allow to come in your mind controls your fucking heart. A man's word right now doesn't mean shit. Imagine if you just have that in your life. You have the truth and you have honor. That everything that comes out of your fucking mouth, you do it. That you do the shit that you said you're gonna do.
Welcome. I am Coach Max. This is your coach, Sam Falsafi. Coach, we're here today to talk about what is the Warrior Week podcast.
So Warrior Week podcast, in the past 4 years, we had it under Warrior Week Parables from the Pit. And over 100 plus graduates of Warrior Week made their ways, traveled all the way across the world. We had people come from Australia, we had people come from Canada, and we have people come from Europe, and we have people come from all over the state, made travels, came down, spend an hour and a half, and they shared the stories of, before Warrior Week and after Warrior Week in an effort to simply send an arrow to someone's heart and pierce it in there and have it resonated with them so that ultimately, at the end of the day, that person could actually give themselves the permission to come to Warrior. And we put 4 years behind that. Lots of effort. This is the work that was done in the evening, as they say. We burned the midnight oil, so there was a lot of work that was done there. And as COVID hit and the travels kind of slowed down, Warrior Week podcast kind of like saddled in, and I always wanted the podcast to be a message that is not Sam just, preaching and talking. It's just literally a conversation that takes place about topics that are so crucial in the growth of the movement of the masculinity, and as well as in our dedication to do God's work as men. And understanding full responsibility, understanding the full spectrum of, the idea of the fourth dimension in which we operate, which is our body, a relationship with our wife and our kids and others, our relationship with God, and as well as our relationship with others when it comes to active service, or some that may like to call it as business, right? Because I do see business as an active service and the impact that we have. Some may say that there's money that's being exchanged, and that may be true, but truly the actual currency that gets exchanged is impact. And when you do that, you're aligned with the purpose that aligns the line of work that you do with the food that you're able to bring on the table and put on the table of other people as part of your organization or as part of your company. So with that being in mind, I do believe that the mission was accomplished, which was a library of different stories. I mean, if you look at it, there's over 114 or 140, I'm not sure, but there's over 100 different men, different colors, different ethnicity, different background, different age, different size, different religion. Like it literally, the variety of 100 men and their stories and their portfolio is available on warriorweeknow.com, right? That's where we've stored all their stories. We've stored the videos, we stored the content, the quotation, the reading. There's a format of video, audio, and written word. We have captured the evidence of the existence of changes and transformation those men took place. And that was for hope to have a library of 100 categories of men in which that everybody, every single man today can actually identify himself with, at the minimum, one of them. At the minimum. Not to say all of them, right? But obviously the answer is, 9 out of 10, we can all identify in the stories that we have as men, because we all face the same struggle. We all face the same pain. It just has a different flavor. Obviously that wasn't the vision when we started the podcast. The vision was to capture men's story, capture their visit here, capture their courage, to come to Warrior Week and tell the story. And even the book Every Man a Leader tells the story of 20 plus men that came through Warrior Week, right? So it's always about making sure that there's a story to be told about courage, about men that stepped into this window of courage. And I've always was an advocate for that if I witness courage, I have the stewardship and the obligation to tell that story. And so as part of it, I guess the only fucking talent that I have is that I do remember these stories. I can just see a person's face and I know that, I know the story. I may not know what Warrior Week they went in. I may not know their last name, or if I do, it's some fucked up version because I'm known for, fucking up the last name of people with my accent. But I will remember. I will put a face to a story because that's what Warrior Week does, right? Warrior Week immerses a week. Takes a week of our life, matching it to the life of the man going through the experience. So I look back right now and I see a library of categories of relevance. It is truly a place of reference that is created for anybody that wants to dig in and understand, what type of man actually comes to Warrior Week. And in that investigation, quickly they'll find out that is exactly the type of man that they are, but they'll see it through the mirror of somebody else's story. We about 7-8 months ago, we sat down, you and I, and you've always been passionate about podcasts. You've always been passionate about broadcasting, whether it's podcast or not, but broadcasting as an act of service, broadcasting the good news, broadcasting the good work, broadcasting the work that is done behind the scene, so that more men become aware of it. And we sat down, we talked about the project. I remember you and I saying, "Hey man, we're gonna pick up this room," and then. We started adding tables, chairs, and then came this beauty. And I'll let you tell us the story of this beauty. And when that got in, and then it was a matter of, technical work, which you've done tremendous amount of work with Mike and put it all together. And really once it was all ready, then we sit down and say, okay, now we're ready. And we said, okay, well, now we're ready for fucking what? And we said, now we're ready to have, conversations about actual pain and problems that we see that is so disguised in within men that is often not talked about or quickly browsed over, or a change of topic or a dismissal, or in many cases a comedy, right? We ran into comedy, we ran into criticizing, we ran into putting the blame on others and separating ourselves from from the same problems. And we said, you know what, man, let's call all those out. Let's call the real pain and problems that we see. I've seen years after years, over thousands of graduates coming into this, and let's pick all those. Let's go through them week by week, systematically, talk about it, about 15 to 20 minutes, an actual breakdown of the most honest conversation that two guys can have in a room without AC and with a fan. Literally the most honest conversation that two men can have about topics, not only about themselves, but about all the other guys, but also point the finger at the person that is hearing. Point the person as they're tuning their ears to the truth and saying, listen, motherfuckers, we're not here to fucking entertain you. We're here to blow the goddamn fucking trumpet. And if you're going to listen, great. But if you're not listening, your blood is not on our hand, period. But our job is to blow the trumpet. So what is Warrior Week Podcast? Warrior Week Podcast is a place that will blow the trumpet, is a place that will broadcast the truth, not my truth, not Max's truth, not my opinion, not his opinion, not the opinion of somebody else, literally the truth. What is the center of Warrior Week Podcast? Where do we compare every single action, every single story? What do we compare it to? We compare it to the center of what we hold as the truth, and which is God's word, which is exactly what God said. What is the truth? Is exactly what God says. Where is that truth? That truth is written word by word in the Bible, 66 chapters, over 7 million words. Like literally, it is in there. And the challenge that we had is the actual resistance and all the questions that we have, that yet we haven't investigated time, effort, or educated ourselves to know. All it is a matter of education and understanding that if God wanted his word to be changed by some kind of human or some kind of history that human has created, then you and I obviously don't believe in the same God, because that's not the God I want to believe in, that has allowed a man to change his word. And that becomes the essence of all this. The center of this becomes the truth, and it's a place where we no longer run away from it because we don't like what is asking of us. We don't run away from it because it tells us a direction. Because the minute it tells us a direction, then you and I are prompt and programmed to come back and complain about the fucking distance like a bitch. That, hey, it's telling me to go that way, but it's too far, so I'm going to complain about it. And I'm going to make my own way. And next thing you know, I look at the mirror and I've replaced God by myself, because I'm going to do what I want, not what I'm told to go and do. And that separation is a separation that took place years ago. For all of us is very different. Could have been a cultural separation, could have been a misguidance about God, but something somewhere gave us the permission to treat God as a mascot and says, well, he's there, I guess, but I'm going to do what I want. And at one point you're like, okay, well, I guess he's there, and this tragic situation happened. What's the point of him being there? So fuck it, I don't even care if he's there or not. I'm just going to do myself. And that is the beginning of the separation. And no matter what we do, there is always this void. No matter what we do, there's always this void. Why am I not full of joy, yet I have all the money, I have the great relationship with my wife and my kids, and a business that thrives, and yet there is a void. And that void will show up in every man's life at one point. Whether that point is right now where you're listening to this, or whether that point will be down the line listening to this, or not even listening to this, down the line, you having heard this, knowing there is a fucking void. And the only place to fill that is a place where you have a clear relationship back with God back in your life. And that's what men need more than any time in our lives, is that they need a personal relationship with God back in their life that is directed by the word of God the way he wanted, not by some hypocritical way, or not some by teaching of some false teachers, not some by, experimental event that raises your emotion to love God, not by anything that requires more than your dedication to know him. Because he's not there to be entertained. He's not there to give you all kind of devices out there, all kind of experiences out there to add to what he is. He's sufficient as is. And our job becomes simply an investigator to know God. Most men don't know God. And yet most men want to claim the fact that, hey, we are made in his image. I get it. I get that. But what image are you talking about? Because if you don't know God, then really you can't stay here and say, well, I'm made of his image. You're made of his image. That's his word. But it's also you, which obligates you to know who he is. And he's revealed himself. He's revealed himself. You're the one that had too many resistance and objections to know him. And it's time for men to know God. And this is not something that somebody's going to force. It's not a class that you come in. You can take classes if you want, but you're certainly not going to get a class here. We're not going to give you a lecture. What we are going to give you is our own experience. What we are going to give you is over 3,500 men's experience in that quest to find God. Both Max and I found God at Warrior Week. It changed our life and altered our lives in ways that we didn't imagine. And it's not that we were godless. It's not that we didn't have God in our lives. We just found a path nearer to him, and we figure out all the bullshit other shortcuts that are all man-made. And the path became narrower and narrower and narrower. And then we went to a place where there is only one way. Simply one way. Is one way towards him, or there is another way also. It's away from him. And that's the hope that we have in this conversation. It's not going to be easy conversation.
No, not at all.
It's not going to be easy conversation. It's going to be rough. We're not going to crack. Sometimes we will crack jokes, but this is not about comedy. We are going to get to the bottom of the problem. We are going to be raw as we were all the time. You come visit us here in the studio or at the office or at Warrior Week, you'll get the same version. You're not going to get a different version because we're putting up a show. And there are many voices out there on podcasts to be heard. There are millions of choices. Quite frankly, zero fucks are given how many fucking choices are there. If you are listening to this, is because somewhere, somehow, God himself wanted you to fucking listen to this. The question becomes, what are you going to do with what you heard?
And that's really another side of what we're going to do is we're going to constantly create action items from what we do inside of this podcast. And we are going to have these really hard conversations, and we are going to show ourselves other men's story, and we're going to give a little bit of behind the scenes of what is Warrior Week. And in this process, we're really, really going to investigate man. And we're going to go to war for what we stand for. And we're going to fucking talk about the truth of what we know. And then we're going to let it be known. And that's something that I'm very passionate about.
That is awesome. And that summarizes, right? So when you come to Warrior Week podcast, expect the homework. And if you don't like homework, then fuck off. Don't show up. You are going to do the work here. And the work is, this is a very interactive podcast. It's going to be very different from everything else out there. You are going to be pulled inside of this conversation, and you're going to be sitting and saying, how is that possible when I'm not live? Just give it a try. You'll see. We have been doing this for 8 years. This is how we train. We don't train from a stage. We train among people. And now if you're in this conversation, you're among us. You're actually sitting right now in this room. And at this point, the proof is that this conversation is resonating at the deepest core in your heart. That's why you're still on this. That's why you're not, fuck these guys. If you're continuing to listen to this, it's because you have a desire and a hunger to investigate in a truth that is yet to be known. And so for that, we're excited. And Max, thanks for putting this together, bro.
Thank you, Coach. And remember, check us out at warriorweeknow.com, and also to check us out at warriorweeknow.com for all the old podcasts and everything else that we have out there. And then once again, remember, these will be bi-weekly shows where we will talk about the truth and we will investigate. Thank you, Coach, once again.
Thank you.
Quit on your wife. Quit on your kids, quit on your desires. It's okay to be okay. Manually putting the fucking blindfold on yourself. Tonight, you're gonna find out what power is.